Welcome to Larry the Alchemist, where we discuss all things heavy metal and hard rock. On today's episode, my 5 favorite singers from the 80s glam slash hair metal scene. Originally, I was thinking of doing a big 4 of glam singers, but the more I thought about it, if you're going to do a big 4, there would be some guys in there that aren't my favorite singers, but they were influential because they were in big bands. Vince Neil, for instance, I think would have to be one of the big 4 of the glam hair singers. So I thought, all right, I'm going to do my 5 favorite singers, in my opinion, the best singers from that whole scene. Now, I did put some parameters on this. I wanted it to be bands and singers that got their start in the 80s and that were in that scene, that whole glam type of 80s MTV scene. There were people from the 70s, bands from the 70s, for instance, Klaus Meine from the Scorpions. He's a great singer. I love his voice. They were certainly popular during the 80s, during the MTV thing. They kind of had that sound a little bit, that glammy sound at times. But again, I wanted to stay away from that. Alice Cooper, he flirted with the whole glam type of scene there in the 80s, but I wanted to stay away from people who had started in the 70s. I wanted people who, were right there in that scene. Their bands are only really associated with this scene. So, okay, I put these in order. I love all these singers, but I did put them in order here. So number 5 for me is Steve Whitman from Kix. Kix is a cool kind of AC/DC type band. I should do a video on them. And I always thought he had a great voice. He's got enough sort of grit to it to give it that little bit of an AC/DC edge, but he's not over the top with it. Like Tom Kiefer almost made my list here, but I just think that Steve Whitman, he has a much more versatile voice, what he does with his voice. He's got that edge to it, but he also can kind of sing a little bit clean at times if he wants to. So Steve Whitman, I've always loved his voice from Kix. Okay, number 4, I think he's a phenomenal singer and he's a phenomenal songwriter. Kip. Is that Kip right there? I can't see my, no, where's Kip? There he is up there. Kip Winger. I hate to say it, but they sort of look the same, right? It was the 80s, everybody with the same hair and everything. All right, Kip, I think he has an amazing voice. I think he's an amazing songwriter. I don't know what to say about him. I mean, the hit songs, Madeline, just all of them, Headed for a Heartbreak, Miles Away. He has an amazing voice, and he's also another one of these guys that he can add that sort of husky grit to his sound, but he can also sing really, really good. He has a nice range. He isn't the super highest of singers, but he just uses his range really well and just has a great tone to his voice. Winger, they get maligned a lot and are sort of like the poster child for the hair metal gone wrong type of thing, which I think is really unfair because these guys are all great musicians, and Kip is a great singer and songwriter and musician. I'm going to do a video. I don't know. Maybe I have done a video on Winger at some point. I don't remember. But very underrated band that deserves much more respect. Okay. Kind of feel bad putting this next one at number 3. He could have been higher up on my list, but it's just because the other 2, I think I just like them a little bit better. Warrant, don't have any of their stuff on vinyl, but have the CD here. Janie Lane, great voice, phenomenal singer. He's another one that his voice isn't super high pitched or anything, but he just has a good tone to his voice. He uses it well. He's very melodic. It's very recognizable, yet it's not, there's nothing really like, he's not like screamy or anything like that. He just has a good, strong singing voice. And I always just thought that his voice was excellent, and he, again, they're another band that kind of came around a little late in the 80s. And if they had come out a little bit earlier, I think they would have had even more success, even though they did have a lot of success. But I really love this record, and I think Janie Lane is a great singer. All right, number 2 for me is Dee Snider from Twisted Sister. He's kind of when I think of like 80s glam singers, he's like one of the first guys I think of. He's like this sort of ambassador for the 80s glam thing. Maybe it was because of the PMRC hearings and everything. But D has an amazing voice. He has tons of power. He reminds me kind of like Ronnie James Dio in the sense that he's singing deceptively higher than you realize because his voice is so husky and so strong and so big sounding. You don't realize quite what a range and how high he can actually sing because he has so much power in his voice. And he's just, when I think of Twisted Sister, I think of him. It's all about his voice. He's the primary songwriter in the band, and he's just, to me, in a lot of ways, the voice of the 80s and this whole glam scene. But at number one for me, I had to put him at number one just because he has such an incredible voice, is Sebastian Bach. And, you know, they're not as glammy as some of the other bands. They were heavier. They came around kind of a little bit later towards the late 80s, but his voice is just incredible. He's kind of like the Judas Priest of the glam hair scene, the Rob Halford of the glam hair scene for me. He has all these different, he can do those really high screams and sing up in that range. He can sing gentle. I think about I Remember You, that song, and it's such a vocal gymnastic type of song. He starts off almost speaking and whispering, and he just gets so powerful, and at the end he lets out this huge scream. So he could do all that. He could do that aggressive, you know, upper range, real gritty, screaming type stuff. He could do the more gentle stuff. He just had a massive range, a bunch of different sort of gears and tones to his voice. So without question for me, he's the greatest singer of the 80s glam scene. So, all right, let me know what you think of my picks. Let me know who you would pick for your favorite singers from that 80s glam hair scene. Let me know in the comments down below. Till we see you again, make sure you stay heavy, stay metal.